Tonight at 6, our 11 Investigates teams will bring you the third part of its series on the 1980 murder of Sister Margaret-Ann Paul. She was killed inside the chapel of the Old Mercy Hospital. Lead investigator Brian Duggar is joining us now with another preview of the story coming up at 6 o'clock. Now, this murder happened in 1980. By the time Father Robinson was tried, this was 2005, 2006, and from 1980 to 06, America's view of the church was vastly different, and it's vastly different even more now.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, both sides, the defense and the prosecutors, mentioned that too. I mean, back in 1980, priests were almost considered godlike. And, several people told me that it was basically impossible to arrest a priest. So probably if he had been arrested and indicted back in 1980, the belief from multiple people I talked to is that they probably wouldn't have been able to convict him. However, in 2002, you had the Spotlight investigation from the Boston Globe. It uncovered all this corruption and sexual abuse by priests in the Boston Archdiocese. And there's kind of a ripple effect after that. Like across the country, many dioceses began settling with people over these abuse allegations, including in Toledo. So there is a much different, there's basically a distrust of the Catholic Church when you got around to like 2006.
In part two last night, we got to watch as the investigators talked to Father Robinson, and he seemed kind of aloof, almost shocked that he's being talked to about the situation. Now, the police, the theory they're going on is they think this may be a satanic ritual, this whole stabbing her some 30 times. Yeah,
I mean, that's really interesting. And I've kind of gone back and forth in my head whether this was really a thing. But you remember the tipster early on that got this whole investigation restarted back in 2004. She told investigators, look for an upside down cross on Sister Margaret-Ann Paul's chest. And, she had been stabbed 9 times over the heart. And, they determined that it was in the shape of an upside down cross. And they also did a search warrant. And in that, they found like satanic literature in his living quarters. So we know he was at least interested in it. And this morning, I actually got a message from a practicing witch, somebody I know, someone I believe, and she said, look, I know this witch from back in that time period, and she practiced Satanism, and Father Robinson was often involved in these ceremonies. And I asked her, I said, do you believe that this was a ritualistic satanic killing? And she's like, absolutely, no doubt. This person that she knew, she said every time the story would come on, she would just start giggling. And wow. So, take that for what it's worth, but that's what I was told.
Now, technology's come light years from back in that era, but like there was DNA, and there was DNA detected in this case, but it wasn't Father Robinson.
Yeah, and the defense really tried to make that point at trial. There's male DNA under her fingernails, and it was not Father Robinson's. It was an incomplete profile, so they couldn't put it in a database, but it was complete enough that they were able to determine that it was male, and it wasn't Father Robinson's. However, these are from nail clippings at the autopsy. They were later ground up, probably decades later, and they were able to extract a little bit of DNA, but they just didn't preserve crime scenes like they did back then. So yeah. A lot of people were involved touching her hands, and my belief is that it was probably contaminated, and it probably doesn't mean a whole lot.
We're really out of time right now, but there's no way, even with today's DNA, we could get any better testing because it's all.
I don't think so, because they used it up in that initial testing. Is there something they could do with a limited profile, sure. Whether there's a graphic? I don't know, but I don't think so. All
right, Brian Duggar, thank you so much. Looking forward to 6 o'clock tonight. Our 11 Investigates team has been working on these stories for months. Right now, you can text the word sister to 419-248-1100 to get all of our 11 Investigates reporting on the case sent right back to your phone. Remember, you can watch the full 45-minute investigation. Her name was Sister Margaret-Ann. Streaming now on WTOL 11+.